Hello! Today I'm going to show you how I made this cake sprinkle shaker card that I used for the card swap at the Schaumburg Stamp and Scrapbook Expo in 2019. The first thing I did is to stamp all the images I wanted to use from the Fawn Baked with Love stamp set onto paper that is friendly with alcohol markers. So I used Noir paper. Also, I used Fawn Jet Black ink. When you use alcohol markers, you want to use ink that won't bleed when you color with the markers. So Fawn Jet Black ink works for this. After I stamp my images, I clean my stamps with the Fawn chamois. I like using this because you just put water on it and wipe your stamps off, so you're not using any chemicals and it's reusable. Next, I colored my images with Copic Markers. I'm kind of new to Copic coloring, so I'm only going to show you a little bit of this since I mainly want to focus on how to assemble the card. On the smaller areas, I just used one color, and then on the larger areas, I started with my darkest color and then worked until I got to my lighter color and blended until I liked the results. I'll put the colors that I used up on the screen. After I colored all the images, then I used my Big Shot Plus machine and the magnetic platform to cut out the images using the Lawn Fawn Baked with Love coordinating dies. I like using my magnetic platform because it's smaller and also it helps hold the dies in place. I also use low-tack tape to help keep the dies from moving. The next step was to add sentiments to my cards. So I took light blue cardstock and cut it out using my Lawn Fawn Fancy Wavy banner dies. Then I used my powder tool to coat the paper with powder. This keeps the embossing powder from sticking to the areas that you don't stamp. Next, I used my sentiment and picked raspberry distress ink to stamp the sentiment. Then I coated it with embossing powder. I used clear embossing powder. Knocked the excess off and then heated it with my heat tool. This melts the embossing powder and gives the sentiment a shiny look. Next, I added a sentiment to the inside of my card. I used an A2 size white card base. I covered the inside of the card with my powder tool. Then I used clear Versamark ink to stamp my sentiment. Next, I used black embossing powder. I found black embossing powder very difficult to use. Even with the powder tool, it did stick in a few different areas. So after I use the black embossing powder, I'm going to probably go back to trying to use black ink with clear embossing powder. Next, I cut out the front panel for my card. I used red cardstock and Fawn stitched rectangle stackable die. I used the largest die to cut out the front panel. Then I cut out a second panel using the second largest rectangle in the set. I used Authentique ingredient collection, and this is called Ingredient 1 paper. The last thing I cut out were some circle frames. I did this by using black cardstock and Fawn's outside in stitched circle die. After I had everything stamped, colored, and cut out, I gathered all my supplies to do the assembly. I think this is the fun part of the card. First, I checked to make sure that my card was going right side up. Then I took my card panel and used my tape runner to attach the panel. Then I used my tape runner to attach the second panel. Then I used my Lawn Fawn outside in stitch circle die in order to cut out a circle out of the top half of the card. This will give me a window to make the shaker card. I layered several layers of paper so I wouldn't have to use foam tape. I didn't want to use foam tape on the back because that would show, and also I don't like to use any more foam than necessary because it's not environmentally friendly. Then I used my tape runner to add the circle frame. I cut up rectangles out of Authentique's recipe paper. This is number 6 from the collection, and I'm using this to make a pocket for my recipe, and the recipe will actually be a background for the shaker so that you won't see the sentiments when you look through the shaker card. This is the idea I came up with in order to put shakers in with cake sprinkles. That way people can get the cake sprinkles out without tearing up the card. I'm adding washi tape as decoration. Then I filled this cello bag with cake sprinkles. You can use a compostable cello bag, and that way it'll be more environmentally friendly. I attach the bag with washi tape. That way, the recipient can take the bag out without tearing up the card. Then I add my recipe card. I printed out a strawberry cake recipe. I thought it went with the red and blue card. And then the blue background will serve as a backdrop that matches the paper in the front. Finally, I attached my sentiment and my images with glue dots. I didn't end up having enough glue dots for all of my cards, so on some of them I used foam squares. made my cake sprinkle shaker card. After this, I had to make 30 more.